Hello, everyone. Where to begin? Welcome to my first video on the, I guess you can dub it, the Halo Expanded Universe. I'm going through, I've been going through all of the Star Wars Legends, what it was redubbed by Disney, originally called the Star Wars Expanded Universe. But I'm taking a small break because I skimmed every era of that, and only deep dived after episode 6. And I reached the very, very, very end of the timeline. So I'm taking a small break, and then I'm going to start at the very, very beginning. But today, I'm starting at the very, very, very beginning. Not the very, very, very beginning, but the earliest we have of the Halo universe, with the Forerunner Trilogy, Cryptum, Primordium, and Silentium by Greg Bear, who also has written a book that I will get to in the future in Star Wars, dubbed Rogue Planet. Non-spoiler wise, and I don't even know how much of spoilers I'm going to talk about, to be honest. This was not for me. There are parts of this entire trilogy that I quite enjoy, but I don't know. There's something about this book. I was never bored by it, I should say, except for some parts of Primordium. It wasn't my type of reading. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt that objectively, I think that this trilogy is written very well. Greg Bear is a good writer. This just isn't my cup of tea. This trilogy focuses thousands of years before the video games of Halo. This is like the height of, I don't actually know if it's the height, but it's a good time for the Forerunner race. Humans are kind of slaves, sort of lesser beings right now. I'm not exactly sure how to describe that. You see, before you read this book, I'd actually recommend looking up the first 4 terminal entries for Halo 4, as most of those terminal entries take place before these books. And we get introduced in Halo 4. We're introduced to this new enemy. This is after after Bungie left and 343 took over. I should also say, I guess, for anybody that has never, if you don't know what Halo is, I'm not exactly sure why you would watch this review. These books, I do not think you can pick them up as a casual fan, as just like you want to get into the Halo universe and you start with this. Some people might really be for that and might really get into it. I'm not sure. It definitely seems to me as if you need to have at least be a casual person who's played at least the games. You don't have to, I haven't read any of the novels. These are the first 3 novels that I've ever read of Halo, right? But I've played the Halo games. But for if some reason you're trying to get into this book because you're OCD like me and you have to do things in chronological order, even though it's weird because the way this story works, you can technically put it wherever you want, because parts of this book take place in present day. It's talking about the past, but the majority of this book is in the past, so you can kind of do it either way. I know some people will be like, well, if they're talking about it in present day, but it's the past, and it's present day story, you would read it there. Present day story as in, I'm not exactly sure, sometime after 4 or after 5. I'm not too familiar with 5, so I've only seen up to 4. I've watched cutscenes for 5. I never played it myself. So I don't know about any of the extra lore and stuff that goes on with that in books. As I said, I'm a very casual fan. But in Halo, you are the Master Chief, you are a super soldier, kind of like if you watch the Clone Wars, or if you like Star Wars, think of the Clone Troopers, except you're not a clone. In fact, they do clone you in the Halo universe. I know this because of the Halo Legends, which is like an anthology series. But no, they clone you. They steal you as a child, kind of like the Jedi do in the prequel. They take you as a little baby. They take you away, right? And then they put a clone, so that way your parents have no way of knowing that you ever left. And then you get all these drugs put inside you, so you can become a super soldier like Captain America, and you become part of the army to fight the Covenant. And that's who you play as. You play as John 117 in Halo, and there's this super religious zealous race called, well, not race, there's this Covenant, which is a couple different races of alien, and they are in a fight against all of humanity, and the humans got to fight for their lives against the Covenant. And then if you play the games, there's this infection that spreads, the Flood, and that's Halo. This is way before any of that, anyway. At least the story that takes place thousands of years before. But in Halo 4, the villain we learn about is Forerunner himself. He is this crazy guy that wants to turn all humans into these knight things, which are like robots, so that way he can fight off the Flood. And he's absolutely crazy and insane, and you're like, how did he get like this? Here's this trilogy for you. The first book focuses really on Born Stellar. This is another Forerunner. Forerunners are a separate race from the humans. There's so much to this series. Like, I'm not going to sit here for like 3 hours and talk about it, but that's how much there is. There's so much going on in this trilogy. But anyway, if you look up on YouTube those first 4 terminals, you don't need them, but I think it helps. You find out that, hey, guess what? In the Halo universe, galaxy far, far away, right? Humans used to be upper tier than where they are when you play the video games. They used to be really technologically advanced and everything. And the Forerunners are chilling, and the humans show up, and they've brought the Flood with them. Or the Flood somehow came to a Forerunner place. It gives kind of... And so the humans know what a threat these Flood are, because the Flood have been bothering them. And so they bomb the planet without explaining. And that causes a huge war against the Forerunners and humans. The humans seemingly lose. And so that's kind of where we're at now. But Born Stellar is a Forerunner, a young Forerunner. He's going on this treasure hunt, basically, with this human, Chakas, and this other form of human. There's different forms of humans. It's kind of weird how that's described. And his name is Riser. They have all these weird names. Like, Born Stellar is a shortened version for his full name, which is Born Stellar something. Like, there's a bunch of phrases that these people have. And what they uncover is the Didact, who was put to, in this like Cryptum first novel, to like sleep or something. I'm not exactly sure, but that's where he was after the events of those 4 terminals. He's been released again. The Flood are coming back. They have not been defeated, so they're work together to stop that. Things happen at the end of the book. I'm not going to get into it. The second book focuses on Chakas, on his adventure. Now, the ending to the second book is the best part of anything. I'm not the biggest Halo fan, but Halo 1 has a special place in my heart. I used to play that game. I mean, I know it's M for mature, but I played it a lot as a kid. And I don't know, I felt like, when I played those games, I was in another world. I was transported away from reality, and I was in space fighting the Covenant. I always like quirky robot characters. That's probably why I have such an affection, like, for R2-D2 and C-3PO. And if you've ever played the Portal games before, there's GLaDOS, who's the villain of the game, and Wheatley, Both those guys are, well, one of them's a girl, at least girl voice. Anyway, they're both robots and they have quirky personalities, and I enjoy them immensely. Um, and so there's a character named 343 Guilty Spark that you meet in the library level of the Halo game. And some connections are made with that in the second book, and that's all I'll say there. As for the third book, we get the second book also starts this, but the third book continues off of that. We get revelations about the Precursors, which are beings that came before the Forerunners or the humans, or the Covenant for that matter. And it all culminates into this conclusion that I don't want to spoil for you. And yeah, gives you the entire series gives you way more context for the events of not only Halo 4, but the Halo universe as a whole. It just clarifies so many things, but yet leaves nothing's open to where you still have questions about the universe. The thing about this series is that there are some really, really great and compelling parts that I really enjoy. This book is very heavy. This trilogy, I should say, is really heavy on world building. So there's lots of things being discussed, lots of things being thrown at you that you just got to kind of grasp. It's also so far in the past there are a lot of things described that's kind of hard to comprehend what I'm supposed to be seeing or imagining. I have been told, and I have come to discover about myself, I am very much a character-first person. And this series has characters, and they have character arcs. But there's an overarching story that is being told. There are revelations that people have been wondering about for years that are being revealed. And, like, I don't want to say, like, I'm small brain. Because, like, I enjoy deep and rich storylines and stuff. Like politics, like wise and stuff. Like, I don't know if there is a novel, but I would love to read a novel. If we're talking about Halo specifically, learning more about the Covenant culture, because they have a very political, religious structure going on there that I think could be really compelling. That's why I find the Senate scenes in the prequels and the Darth Plagueis novel so compelling, and the Black Fleet Crisis trilogy. If you're not a fan of Star Wars, then you have no idea what I'm talking about. But there are some really good moments in there that I really enjoy. Or like Babylon 5, there's a lot of political discussions and stuff, but not like our world where everybody's divisive and everything. I don't know. That's the kind of stuff I love. There's not a lot of that. It's so ancient and so foreign a time, and there are some fascinating revelations that are made, like with the Grave Mind and the Precursors. But it's just, there's so much information. I could sit here forever talking to you about it, but I feel like I have to read this book like a second or third time through, or the trilogy, to fully give you a comprehensive analysis of everything that's going on. Maybe I'm propping this up too much. There are some people who could read this once and give you everything about it, and it's fine. I'm not one of those people. My attention span's not like that. A lot of times I was kind of like, oh my goodness, it's still going. And so I would have to read this a couple times over to fully give that to you. Overall, if you are at least a casual Halo fan or a deep, hardcore lover of Halo, if you read these novels, a lot of revelations will be revealed to you. Origins are made. I think you'll really appreciate this book. I still don't think this book is for everyone. Certainly, I don't think it was for me, though I'm glad I read it, if that makes sense. It was just kind of a chore to get through some of it. These books, I don't know if it's hard sci-fi. I don't know. There are a lot of stuff where they're talking about stuff like, it sounds like they're trying to explain actual science, but I don't think that's how that would work. But I don't know. There's a lot of phrases and stuff being described to you, and just a lot of stuff you gotta understand. And as I said, I think it's written well. It's just not for me. But it might be for you. So I think it's definitely worth your time to check out. If you felt like Halo 4 was okay, I definitely think that after reading these, Halo 4's thing will boost up for you. Kind of like how Darth Plagueis in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Because I never hated Episode 1. I don't even hate the prequels. People who hate them, I don't agree with them. I always thought episode 1 was okay. After reading Darth Plagueis, episode 1 became fantastic. And so in the same sense, I think that might help a lot of issues and gripes that people might have had with Halo 4 if they were to read these. Of course, you shouldn't need a novel to make the movie better, or a game. That's true. I'm just saying, if you are a fan of this universe, that would probably help you a lot. I'm going to talk about some things, but I'm not doing a deep dive on spoilers. I just kind of jotted down things that interested me, and that is about it. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, if you don't want spoilers, this is where we're going to leave. So if you enjoyed this video, thumbs up. Sharing helps out a ton. And if you want to see me review more Halo novels and such, and or Star Wars material, and maybe the Dune series at some point too, I plan on doing that, then this is the place for you to subscribe to go find more of that. And then for those of you who are Halo veterans who read every novel, comic, and play all the video games and know all the lore and everything in between, this is where you come to see what I think about the more spoilery-ish stuff about this. So, starting, this is the last chance, spoiler time. So starting with Halo 1, Cryptum, Halo Cryptum, Book 1, the Forerunner Trilogy. They're Born Stellar, we get to meet Born Stellar, we get to meet Chakis, the human who accompanies him. This is, I believe, unless I misunderstood, 10,000 years, 10,000 years before this book, so even further, because this is already like thousands of years before the games, and then 10,000 years before these books. There's a Forerunner Human War, which I talked about. There's a character named Riser, who's like a little short human we meet. When we meet the Didact finally, he definitely doesn't seem crazy like he does in Halo 4. So that's how he starts out. The Didact needs Forerunner to be released. I'm kind of confused what I meant by that. Never mind. The Silentium, which were those long neck guys that are in wheelchairs in the video games, they in this book are described as how they used to be sexy and worked with humans. They worked with humans during the war against the Forerunners, and the humans, the Silentium, sided with the humans in that conflict. I just find it funny that they were described as sexy, because they all look like old turtles in the Halo games. So how did that happen? How did they go from one of the sexiest beings in the universe to turtle-necked guys drinking? Blasphemy! I don't know. It's crazy, though. Born Stellar, later on in the book, he gets mutated and becomes more like the Didact. And then there's this really confusing part near the end of the book where the Didact imprints his memories on Born Stellar, but Didact is still an individual himself. But Born Stellar retains all of his memories, so he still refers to the librarian later on as his wife, even though it's not his wife. He becomes there's the Your Didact, which is the original Didact, which is the Didact we know from Halo 4, and then there's the ISO Didact, which is Born Stellar. Installation, the Ark. Flood, Installation, the Ark, which is, I believe, the Halos, where, in Halo 1, you go to Installation, but that's Installation 4. There's like 12 of them or something like that. And then we get to... we also learned that Born Stellar's father helped build the rings, which was interesting. And Flood were thought to be created due to experiments. At least in the first book, that's speculated, but we later find out that's not the case. You get to book 2, Primordium, which, oh my gosh, Primordium, there are some really great moments, but there's also some really, really, really slow moments. But this follows Chakas after they were separated from Born Stellar, and at the end of the first book, this ancient I don't know if it was a Halo or it was one of those ancient things came and actually destroyed the Forerunner Council. And so that caused an upheaval of politics and arguing and all sorts of things, crying and stuff going on with the society due to that event. We of course learned that the Precursors made the humans and the Forerunners. And then they meet a Primordial. And the Primordial, which is one of the most ancient beings, like millions of years old. We also learned that the Primordials and the Forerunners even earlier, were in a war together. They fought against one another because they found out they weren't going to inherit the mantle. The mantle is this whole thing, which there's so much to talk about, but I don't want to get into all this right now. Google what the mantle is, Halo mantle, but they're not going to inherit it, and so that upsets them. The humans are going to inherit it, and so that causes a war, which the Primordials actually lose in. If you can survive and become immune to the flood, then you are worthy of the mantle, and the Forerunners are not. We also learn that that current day intelligence service ONI from the military of the Halo games is interviewing or talking to 343 Guilty Spark. And then Born Stellar at the very end as Didact, or as the Isodidact does something to Chakas. And here's the best part. I mean, there's a lot of revelations. I'm not even talking about everything because there's, as I said, there's so much information in these books. But there's a lot of revelations with the Primordials and their role with the Flood and what the Flood actually is and how it's not a mindless parasite and how they actually have a goal in mind, and how they were created by the Primordials and everything. There's a whole thing about that. But at the end, the Didact, the Isodidact, Born Stellar, puts Chakas's mind essence away from his body, puts it into a machine. What is that machine? Those little balls from Halo. Chakas, that we've been reading about for 2 books now, is 343 Guilty Spark. And that was a really cool revelation. I also listened to audiobook while reading, and he transforms. The narrator goes from talking how he normally talks to talking how he talks, but also with the filter over his mouth, so he can become 343 Guilty Spark. It was a really cool ending. It was insane. Halo Silentium, which is the final novel in the trilogy. There's a character that named Catalog who needs a testimony from both the librarian and the Isodidact. And so we kind of learned some more about the Didact and her when they originally first met and stuff. We also learned that the Didact was still alive. He got separated at some point, and he was tortured by the Grave Mind. The Grave Mind, if you remember in Halo 2, this thing is holding both Master Chief and the Arbiter, and that's the Grave Mind. And he basically tortures Didact, and he kind of goes insane a little bit, and his physicality changes to look a bit more like how he looks in Halo 4, where he has like the tusks or fangs or whatever coming out of his mouth. Thousands of years before this very series, Politics Be Politics, and the librarian proposes an expedition to this place. But as we get back to present day, the Forerunner, there's this Forerunner artifact that attacks, but the Didact stays. And then the flood activates some ancient weapons, which attacks people. And then also in this final novel, there's a lot of stuff I'm skipping over. There's so much. Like, I'm not sitting here for an hour. I'm sorry. I didn't write enough notes for that. If you guys want me to do an in-depth one, I'll have to do that in the future, but not today. But Isodidact names Chakas 343 Guilty Spark in this one. Yeah, so it's weird because Bornsteller had Didact's memory. Didact's and the Didact original left and had everything happened with the flood, so that was a bit confusing. But the Didact is using the Your Didact. Sorry, I gotta differentiate the Your Didact, the original one, the one that we see in Halo 4, is turning humans, making them into the things that you fight in Halo 4, so that way you can help combat the flood. The Isodidact Bornsteller activates the Halo rays, wiping out all life in the galaxy. But he survives. He goes back to Earth, where the Librarian fled to, helps replant or reseed human civilization. And then they eventually die out, or so it seems, unless that gets changed like Halo Infinite or something. But there's an interesting thing that's said near the very end. And I'm not exactly sure what this means. But at the very end, Isodidact asks Spark, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? And if you play Halo 1, yeah, Guilty Spark has this weird connection with Master Chief. And Master Chief is with him. And he says, you told me long ago what I would do in your shoes. I've had all this time to calculate, because he never answered Bornsteller. And he says, I know what you need to do, and you need to fire that thing. And so it's just interesting, that parallel. And what does that mean that Guilty Spark sees Master Chief as? Does he see him as Bornsteller? Kind of confused about that. But those are just some of my thoughts. As I said, I'm sorry that so many of my notes are so vague and stuff. There is so much going on in these books. It is absolutely insane. This is the Silmarillion, the love child of everything, that, J.R.R. Tolkien did for his Lord of the Rings series. This is just how insane it all is. Just how much information and history is being thrown at you. And so it's crazy. Like I said, I found it hard to pay attention, so that may also have been why. But I tried my best to retain the information that was really important and share it with you today. If you're not a reader, obviously you're not going to enjoy this. But if you do like to read and you love Halo, it's a win-win for you. Of course, this was made after Bungie. I don't know how Bungie would feel about it, but I hope that they would like it, because it is written very well. And they already introduced the Didact and Librarian in Halo 3. Of course, 343 changed some things, but still, it was interesting. I don't know what I have next in the timeline, because I'm trying to go in chronological order, but it's kind of hard to do so. I'm only going to try to do stuff that takes place in between. I don't know if I'm going to do all of it. I might be skipping around, because I'm still trying to buy Star Wars novels so I can review those. But I might just skip around to things I think look interesting. But I'm not going to go past Halo 3, in terms of extra material. Then I'm going to go through the entire expanded universe of Star Wars, maybe come back to Halo, but then there's also the Doom books that I'm curious to read about, because I hear those are if you're a sci-fi fan, you gotta read it. So I'm curious about that. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope, if you haven't read these books, because I know I didn't enjoy them, it's not that I didn't enjoy them, it's not my type of book, but I hope I've encouraged some people, maybe, if you like the Halo game, if you like Halo 4, this might interest you, This also just explains so much of just the mysteries behind a lot of the Halo lore. So that was interesting. But anyway, that'll be all for today. If you enjoyed this video, thumbs up. Showing up a ton. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.